super excited because, today I have Kree Govender who joined me from Microsoft. Kree probably is one of my favorite people, but also a favorite Microsoft person. I just love, Kree's stage presence. I've seen him speak at many events. Super passionate Kree. I know you're about AI. I'm not gonna introduce yourself, but I want you to introduce yourself. But this is what I know about you. You're super passionate about AI. You're a leader at the, for Microsoft for the SMB space. So with that, why don't you introduce yourself and correct anything that I have said that's not true, right?
No,
So yeah.
well, it's always good to spend time with you. I'm all in person and in virtual settings, and deeply appreciative of the partnership and the human connection that we have. So I'm Kree Govender, been at Microsoft for 10 years in a variety of roles. And a deep passion of mine, as Amal had shared, is AI. So now it's very, very topical, and we get to chat about the important piece around security. And just in my role at Microsoft, I get to lead our SMB business. It's about 1.4 million customers in Canada. So we can only do that through great partnerships with companies like Crucial Logics. So thank you for the role that you play in keeping our customers safe and secure, because that is the jump off point for any responsible foray into the world of AI.
Oh, thank you, Kree. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amol Joshi. I'm the CEO here at Crucial Logics. We are a pure play Microsoft security company. Our role in the whole AI world is to actually secure AI for ethical and proper use, along with making sure that your organ environments are secure using native Microsoft technology. So we go beyond AI. We've been around for 8 years, and we do a lot of great work around Defender, Intune, Microsoft Sentinel. We have a SOC, and all that great stuff. So what we want to talk about right now is the problems, both on the security front, and then we'll dive into a little bit of AI that the SMB business, small to mid-sized businesses in Canada are facing. And in Microsoft's eyes and Crucial Logic's eyes, SMB businesses are any businesses that are, would you say, Cree, about 300 users and below, would be a safe way to define it. Sometimes, that boundary creeps a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
organizations that are not large enterprises and don't have tons of IT teams at their disposals, that's the key, right? So let's start there. Why are SMBs, in your opinion, the number one target for security?
Yeah, and I will admit this was possibly a gap in my understanding until I came into this
Okay.
SMB segment, because I was under this false misconception that the vast majority of like cyber attacks are concentrated where the big pots of money are. What I came to quickly realize, that is the very reason why SMBs become such a prime target. Often the hoops that attackers need to jump through are significantly harder and more complex within those environments. Like if you think about financial institutions or government and the like. So yes, the payday for those malicious attacks is often larger, but
Yeah.
the complexity involved in that is higher. So for SMBs, many of them, when I chat to them and I ask a curious question around, tell me about your security posture, they're like, well, I'm a little three-man shop. Like attackers have no reason to come and attack me. Like I've got nothing really to offer them, which is
Yeah.
exactly why it happens. And
Absolutely.
from what we see, the data shows us that it's not just really about locking you out of your account and ransomware. There are many reasons why these attackers want to be in your environment. One is that they could lurk there for years undetected, like slowly siphoning out bits and pieces of your IP. Number two, they sometimes want to steal your credentials and perform malicious activities or even sell it on the dark web. And they'll do this over a period of time. And I like to think of them, or I don't like to think of them, but I often frame them as leeches within your environment. They will sit there and they will suck everything out of you in a parasitic form
Yeah.
until there's nothing left, and then they'll lock you out of your estate. And then it's like, you got to pay us X amount before
Absolutely.
we give you access back into your environment. So those are just some of the reasons. They aren't the
Yeah.
only reasons, but the big ones that we see why SMBs are a prime target for these attacks.
And on top of that, actually, Verizon released a report, the data breach investigation report last year, and what it told us was that 88% of SMB breaches, 88% of the breaches involved SMBs. Only 39% of the breaches involved large enterprises. That's a big number and a big difference between the two, right? So I think the target are SMBs, and in our experience, the attacker's logic has that SMBs hold just as much of valuable data, right? So at the end of the day, their defenses aren't as bolstered as a enterprise, so it becomes an easier target than going after, let's say, Coca-Cola, right? Or Mercedes Benz. I mean, listen. I mean, we've seen organizations that size get breached as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, it generally comes down to human error. But I think these bad actors rather go after the quick wins than this long drawn out endeavor to breach a large organization.
You touch on such an important
Yeah.
piece here because the attack vector as well, or the mode of attack, has changed significantly with the advent
Yes.
of AI.
Yes.
There's well, people are well educated and they understand that it can be used for good and it can also
Yep.
be weaponized.
Yep.
And what we've seen are these AI powered attacks because now attackers, you don't need a team of people or a single
Yep.
person sitting behind a keyboard where you can only scale by the
Yep.
fact of your human productivity. You can do this through agentive now, and they can attack at scale.
Wow.
So it's really opened up multiple attack vectors
Yeah.
for them.
I mean, we all are afraid of mythos. Like every client that I'm speaking with is talking
Yeah.
about mythos, right?
Mm.
And it's funny. I mean, if you actually look at the easiest way to protect yourself against mythos, is not like adding more security features to your organization. Yeah, great, that will help you. But it's simple things such as patch management, right? Like the mythos is literally going after vulnerable, softwares in your environment, right? And so patch management is going to be key for a lot of people. And I think generally in SMBs, there isn't a strategy around that, right? Also, traditionally, I've seen these business email compromise, right? Where you see the CEO sending an email to the receptionist or whatever and saying, oh, I'm stuck in so and so place. Can you get me X amount of or Intune gift cards or whatever, right? iTunes gift cards or whatever that is, right? Um, but the major risk for SMBs, in my opinion, I don't know, I would love to get your opinion on it, is supply chain attacks, where most of these SMBs serve a larger customer of theirs, which is government or one of the large enterprises, and these bad actors are trying to get into the SMB so then they can make their way into the bigger organizations, right? So then you also have this reputational damage that you have to worry about. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that? Yeah,
I'm in absolute agreement with you there. And the reputational damage far outweighs in many ways the damage the material damage that you'll experience from that
yeah,
breach.
yeah,
Because if you've got a large anchor client or a set of anchor clients, it's your responsibility to inform them of the breach, number one.
absolutely.
And on the other end, they look at this sea of other suppliers that
Yeah,
could fulfill that function. They're like, oof, if you don't have your house in order, then we need to be with someone who takes their security and their data posture and their security posture much more seriously than this.
yeah,
It's often a death knell for many SMBs when they encounter this. I think the stats were somewhere around between 60 to 80% of them, once they encounter a breach,
agree.
they never reopen their doors
No, it's
again. So it's really that much of a death sentence. And I
it's it,
often try and so sorry, hold
no,
on.
no,
I often try and guide many SMBs, and I say, think about security from a digital standpoint. way that you would think about how you protect your home. It's that much of an imperative.
No, it definitely is. And I mean, I've been involved in a few breach responses, and the toll on the people is enormous. I mean, the stress that not only the breach response team goes through, but also the ownership of the company and the people surrounding it go through. It takes months. Like, we were working with a law firm a few years ago that called us in the middle, Sunday evening, and it literally took them 3.5 months to get back online. Right? It's a webinar on its own, actually, but we were able to decrypt the algorithm with help of different teams, and save them from paying the ransom. But the ransom was sitting at $1 million, right? But but it took them 3 months. Like, the decryption is not an easy event. It actually takes a long time to decrypt things as well, right? Uh, a lot of the SMBs feel that antivirus and firewalls are enough, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, those are so easy to jump over today. That may have been the case maybe 8 or 9 years ago, but absolutely not the case today. Technology has moved so fast and so quickly that that isn't even a minimum requirement anymore. It's very much an expectation that you have it. And the landscape, not just from a technology standpoint, has changed. It's also changed from an insurance perspective as well.
Yeah,
More and more we see insurers, business insurers, requiring that as a minimum compliance requirement for insurance to be in
yeah,
place
yeah,
because of the proliferation of all of these attacks. And they're like,
yeah,
well, we can't fit the bill for this.
yeah,
You need to also play your part in ensuring that you've taken adequate measures. You're using software that we recognize as being
yeah,
best in breed.
yeah,
And thankfully, Microsoft sits within that domain.
yeah. Absolutely. And here's the thing: the perimeter, as it was defined before, is now gone, right? Like, I'm here in my house, you're at your house, you're not behind a Microsoft firewall anymore. So your perimeter has to be basically around your computer, and we have to protect the organization using identity. And as they say, the identity is the new firewall at the end of the day, right?
Mm.
And I have said this. I mean, I've been in security forever, but I've said this, that everyone kind of gets it wrong. People think that cybersecurity really is about protecting your data, or protecting your service from getting encrypted. At the base of it all, in my opinion, it's about protecting your identity. Because if you look at every single breach report, it's generally somebody's identity that has fallen, and that's made its way into the organization. And then, they've made those lateral movements, and, encrypted the servers, and, gotten into other people's mailboxes and things like that, and caused havoc. So really, identity, in my opinion, is probably the new attack surface that everyone needs to really think about, because we're no longer behind a firewall anymore either, right? So yeah. And
Very
before we move on to AI, because I do want to dive into AI, because that's my favorite topic, that's your favorite topic these days, right? The problem also is, bring your own device, right? I mean, we are allowing people to access stuff that's corporate oriented on their own device, which most companies don't control properly, right? So there are ways to control it. I mean, here's a shameless plug from Microsoft. Like, this is the business premium license, gives you everything that you need to properly configure it. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next webinar, is about, the features that the license comes with, and how can you configure it, and how should you configure it for a better protection, right? But yeah, any last thoughts on that one before we move into AI?
Yeah, you touched on. I'm in absolute agreement with you that it's at the identity level, because that is the place of it can be the weakest link if it's not done properly, if people are not secured in the right manner. Um, and once an attacker is in, those are literally the keys to the kingdom. You did make the the piece on devices, and that hit a little bit of a sore spot for me. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in
Sure.
Montreal 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I dropped my device. So number one, I was someone who thought, "Oh, I'm not that reliant on my device." I'm not tethered to this thing. I can survive. No. Without the GPS, I was struggling. Without being able to book my Ubers, I was struggling, and
Yeah.
I was at a loss for entertainment. But more on the business front, when I got back to the office last week, I wanted to install the apps that help me stay productive, from Teams to email and so forth. But I had to go and register a work profile. I had to go and ensure that this device now is registered with Intune. And as much as it took time to do that, I'm so glad that it is the case,
Yeah.
because that's how the environment is secure and protected, and how
Yeah.
Microsoft can ensure that 250,000 global employees
Right.
don't allow an attacker into our environment. And that's what we provide to our partners and customers as a technology too.
Right. Because I mean, you can't control what people do on their devices. I mean, I think there are people get personal emails, they click on malicious links, people go on links that are not, savory, I would say, right? There's a lot that happens on your device that more than you know. I mean, people, I think, are trained not to do those kind of things on their computers, but they can get a little bit, because you're using your device when your guards are down. You wake up in the morning and you click on an email that just arrived, because you're still waking up, and you're not fully awake yet, and things like that. It just, it can just proliferate from there quite a bit, right?
Yeah. To that point, it literally happened to me yesterday. My son is getting ready for the World Cup. I hope you guys are watching today,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
supporting South Africa, hopefully. But he is collecting these stickers that go into the sticker book, and there was a digital version of this Panini sticker book. So I went onto the Google Play Store, I searched for it, and I installed the app. And often we have this assumption that, oh, if it's on the Play Store, all the checks and balances are in place. But I
Yeah.
opened up the app, and immediately my Microsoft security kicked in, and it's like, you need to uninstall this, because
Wow.
and I was like, oh wow. And I went back to the Play Store. I'm like, I know this is an official app. And I had a look, and it was actually, the official app was below it. It
Yeah.
wasn't that one. Same icon,
Right.
similar name, but to your point, my guard was down, and I wasn't like, oh, is this the real app or not?
Yeah.
So
No, it's and like I said, it just it happens from so many different, and that's why having that logical separation between BYOD, like, your personal and corporate data, is extremely, extremely important. Let's dive into the second topic: AI. AI without governance, because
mhm.
AI is everywhere. I mean, I can't get away from it. I bought this Fitbit Air, and it comes with this AI coach, which, I'm obsessed with right now. But really, like, it's with everywhere, right? Like, I don't think any company is putting out a product without slapping AI on it, right? So the fear has always been, what AI is good, what AI is not good. How do you govern the AI within the organization? What's Microsoft's view on it?
Yeah, it's once again, there are two sides to this, and the two faces to it. But the two things I'm going to say on this before I get into the Microsoft piece. I literally read an article earlier today, and I posted it on my LinkedIn feed, and it was a piece of analysis that was done that shows that today browser usage by AI agents now officially surpasses human
Wow. Yeah.
usage. So
Full work. Yeah.
yeah, so we've broken that barrier for the first time,
Right.
which tells you a lot.
Yeah.
And it's only an inkling of what's to come next, because that's just going to be exponential, not linear in
Yeah.
the way that we've used it. So that's the one piece. But the second piece is, this is the first time in our history where for this technology to be truly, truly useful, it needs access to our data, all
Yes.
of our data,
Yes.
for it to reason over it and really be able to give you rich outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And with that, that's a fantastic thing that it's able to do. But if that data is not properly governed and secured,
Yes.
it can be misused in so many different ways. Um, Firstly,
No.
and first and foremost, by model providers themselves.
Yeah.
So some model providers, it's written into their T's and C's that they can and will use your data to train their models. I can say categorically that's
Yeah.
written into Microsoft's terms of use that we will never use customer data to train our models. Your data remains your data
Yep.
on that front. But we also know as an organization, and this is to answer the heart of your question, that billions of customers trust us with their environments. And our CFO said this really well in an all hands call. She said, our prime responsibility as Microsoft in this age of AI, as excited as we are to bring this technology to bear, is to ensure that every single one of our customers is educated and protected. So our number one priority is not AI, it's actually security,
Yeah.
because trust is earned in drops, but it
Yeah.
is lost in buckets. And
That's that's a
that
good
was
way of
a
putting it.
powerful statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a powerful statement. It actually it reminds me of a story when ChatGPT first came out in 2023. I can't believe it's been 3 years for that. Samsung started seeing their proprietary code on ChatGPT because apparently people internally started using ChatGPT as a compiler to just test their code and see if that code is working. They all even put in the equipment diagnostics to see, figure out the error reports and stuff like that. It was pretty crazy. I mean, Samsung at that point had to ban ChatGPT from their environment because you know, the other stat tells me is that, 56% of the organization actually think that they have great policies around AI, but only 12% actually do, which is scary, right?
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about the other, 40 something percent that are not even thinking about, policies around AI. But I see that all the time where they have written policies on AI, but they don't have technical controls in terms of what is considered sanctioned AI and what's considered unsanctioned AI,
Yeah.
right? Like, you could say Copilot's my AI of choice, or, Claude is my AI of choice, doesn't matter. But make that decision that says, what is your AI of choice? And then block everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And we also see a percentage and that sits in that 40% that you had mentioned, where they say, oh well, this is happening way too fast for us. We don't have a policy in place, and we just kind of want to hold off on this AI thing.
yeah,
So they outlaw it as a practice. But the
yeah,
truth is, going back to something you mentioned earlier on, the employees themselves, they will bring AI into your organization whether you want them to or not. On
absolutely.
these devices, even if it's blocked in their browsers, they will find ways because they know that their friends, their colleagues are using it in other ways,
Yep,
shapes, and forms. And they're like, why am I slugging through this when I can use this as a force multiplier? And if
absolutely.
they're not educated, if the correct controls are not in place from a technology standpoint to safeguard them from themselves,
Yep,
you will end up with the scenario like the one that you mentioned with Samsung, because they didn't do it maliciously. They were like,
yep.
oh, it's an amazing tool. This is going to help me like with my product specs. Like I should just put it in there.
Yeah. No, I mean it's interesting because actually just this week we actually handed out the premium Copilot licenses to every single person in the organization, right? All 70 of us, right? Because at
Nice.
the end of the day, yeah, we were testing it out and we had governance policies in place and things like that. And it came to a point where we now know that for us to be efficient at our jobs, every single person not only needs to have AI, and Copilots are AI of choice, especially with Claude being integrated, that Copilot, it's taken it to a next level. Co-work and now Scout that's coming out, it's taken it to the next level. But now, in fact, we want to innovate using AI. Actually, we are releasing a contest where we're gonna now that we have it properly governed and everyone has proper access to it, because before we were just blocking everything, right? Like we're like, okay, let's get this whole thing under control. The context is a contest is, and I'm probably giving it out because HR was supposed to release it at our team building event this week or next week. But whoever comes up with an AI solution to make the team's job more efficient, we're going to give them a cash reward. right?
Nice.
It's we just want to see innovation. Like we just want to see innovation to make lives easy for us and our customers, right? But it has to happen in a secure manner. That's the goal at the end of the day, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Safe and secure experimentation. You're absolutely spot on there, because there can be so many unintended consequences if that is not in place.
yeah,
Like this aspect of data and security at the same time is critically important.
yeah,
That's one of the things that really sits as the bedrock to this when customers say, "Oh, I want to get on this AI journey." I'm like, okay, number one, let's make sure that the mechanics behind this are all in
yeah,
place. Like, let's ensure that we can get this to reason over your data in a responsible way. The good thing is there's technologies now, even if your data is fragmented, things like Fabric like really wrap it together nicely. But
yeah,
then the bigger concern often comes from business, which is, oof, I've not labeled our documents correctly.
yes,
Their biggest concern internally, looking internally, never mind the external threat, is I don't want people to have access to the wrong set of information.
yeah,
And that's where solutions like Purview can be phenomenal at
absolutely,
doing that.
absolutely. Listen, I know that we are short on time, but I do want to touch on cyber insurance that we touched on a little bit before, because that
Yeah.
whole landscape is changing. But before we get there, here's some stats in terms of, well, why cyber insurance is becoming a topic these days. Because for small businesses, the total cost of breach is about $120,000 to $1.24 million, and that's before you factor long-term reputational damages, right? The average cost of ransomware attack overall reached about 5.13 million in 2024. That's not just small businesses, but enterprises as well. And now a cyber attack is happening every 11 seconds as of end of 2025. That's just crazy, right? It
Mind
it's
blown.
it is, right? So when you're thinking about that, and it's funny because the conversation about AI, in my opinion, has kind of put the conversation about security on the back burner, right? Because everyone's talking about AI. And I
Mhm.
feel like in 2027, we'll come back to this statement, there will be a security reckoning, right? Where people haven't thought about security as much as they're thinking about productivity and AI at this point. But we need to think of both of those things in the same context, right? Like it has to go hand in hand. So let's talk about, like, have you dealt with cyber, insurance organizations? What are, would you do you know what they're looking for these days? What are you hearing from your SMB organizations at this point?
Yeah, yeah. It ties into some of the stats that you mentioned actually. And when I was sitting down with some of the insurers, they actually reached out to us and they said, "Listen, we're seeing an absolute surge in terms of claims as it's related to this, and now we're putting in policy in place for those that we do offer insurance to say that." This is a minimum ticket to entry.
Yeah,
In the same way that you have to do certain things to ensure that your vehicle is
yeah,
roadworthy, that
yeah,
it's maintained properly for you to obtain auto insurance. It's a similar guys when it comes to business insurance as well. They
yeah,
said we'd like to have Microsoft as being one of a handful of security providers that these organizations can choose from. And one of those insurers shared like a very sobering statistic with me, and he said that this anti-economy
yeah,
of cyber is a $3 trillion industry that grows at a rate of around 18% year over year.
yeah. It's crazy.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of
So
money.
so they're like, well, Microsoft has phenomenal solutions. We've gone and we've vetted them, and now this becomes a core mandate. So to your point, if there are insurers that are out there right now, or if your business is with an insurer that doesn't ask for it, that requirement is coming soon, or
Yeah.
else the delta in the premiums you're going to pay is going to just be eye-watering for you until you get that in place.
And I'll tell you, like, in my experience, I've seen a lot more declines these days, and then the clients come to us and say, "Oh, this is what was the gap that was found on the cyber insurance." So, to even think about multi-factor authentication as a gap is mind-blowing right now. Like, I can't believe that people are still not, don't have it properly implemented, but they're talking about endpoint detection and response, having a proper SOC monitoring for your organizations, having a immutable backup, which is massive, right? Like, where you
Mm,
can recover from the immutable backups and things like that. But one thing that I consistently come across is that if we, when we work with an organization and we tell the organization, in cyber insurance company, that we are using business premium license, and everything else that comes with the business premium license has been configured, and we produce our design documents. The the fact that it's Microsoft technology built on a zero trust framework, uh, just enables the underwriter to feel that much more comfortable, signing off on the policy,
yeah.
right? So that's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, and often, even though customers have bought the licenses, they've just not configured them properly, or they've not had
Absolutely.
some of those features that are turned on. And
Absolutely.
that's an area where I know Crucial Logics really excels at that, being able to help customers derive the maximum value out of the investment that they've made in our technology.